Hello, everybody, dear counselors, dear colleagues, dear friends. Welcome to this video uh, in which I will provide guidelines for supportive supervision for counselors, specifically for child and adolescent counselors. Well, needless to tell you that supportive supervision is something very helpful in your professional development. It does not in any way imply that you as a supervisor are superior or inferior to the supervisee. It is a way to help each other, and in the role of supervisor, you are helping another counselor as well. To me, it has been extremely helpful as a clinical counselor. I benefited a lot from it, and I can tell you all the colleagues that I speak to who have used supervision as a tool for growth will tell you the same thing. Now, this perspective that I used in these guidelines is the perspective of the supervisor. So it will not focus that much on how you can benefit from supervision, but it will tell you how you can do supportive supervision. But I will sometimes address also how you yourself can, even as a supervisor, still benefit and still use actually to have an external supervisor as well. So people using this presentation might have followed the basic counseling training that I presented in UNICEF in the Pacific region. They will also might have benefited from the advanced training and also the supervision training and maybe even the training of trainers. Now, all of this is not necessary to benefit from going through this presentation. Maybe you are a person who has followed other trainings, maybe of the University of the South Pacific, or maybe of an institute in New Zealand or Australia. That's all good. You can still benefit from this video material, from this PowerPoint presentation of guidelines for supportive supervision. But now let's get started. Let's talk for a second on the purpose of supervision and what is actually the role of the supervisor and the supervisee. Well, the purpose of supervision is to promote growth in the person that you supervise. You want the person that you supervise to become more professional, better in the job that he's doing. You want him or her to become better in helping children and adolescents and parents who are guiding these children and adolescents. That is the purpose. The purpose is not to judge. The purpose is not to do supervision in a traditional way. I'm your line manager and I supervise you. I want to see that you arrive on time. I want to see that you do it well. No, none of that. It's really to support. We want to create a safe environment in which we can talk about difficulties, about challenges that the supervisee is meeting. In supervision, we can talk about different things. We can talk about technical aspects. For those who have been following the UNICEF trainings, that can be, for example, the different ages and stages of child development. That can be how to promote resilience. That can be what are the implications of the state dependence of cognition. It can be how children heal from trauma, or it can be how children or adolescents heal from loss as well. It can also be on how to use art-based methods, music-based methods, narrative methods, and psychomotricity methods, because these are the things that we have been discussing, right? But it doesn't have to be only technical. It can also be from about how your supervisee can cope with aspects that we also saw in our trainings, like secondary trauma, vicarious trauma, or impassion fatigue as well, right? Help them cope. We can also talk about the legal requirements, actually. In our trainings, we talked about the minimum standards that child and adolescent counselors have to comply with. So how can you reach those standards, and how does your supervisor needs to improve? What do they need to work on to meet these minimum standards? Or just how can they find their way in the labyrinth of all the legislative work? You can help them with that as well as a supervisor, right? Now, what is not supervision? Well, supervision is not, as I said before, it's not line management. It's also not therapy. It's not going to be an endless amount of sessions in which you try to heal the supervisee from its emotional difficulties and time. There is a supportive component on emotional level for sure, but it's not the main purpose of the whole supervision cycle. Now, what is the role of the supervisee? Well, the supervisee basically has to share information, has to share challenges, and actually has to take the lead in all the sessions with the supervisor. It's the supervisee who has to take the initiative to be supervised, but also in every single session, the supervisee has to bring up information that can be discussed and has to engage in reflections. Only in this way, true professional development and growth can take place. One important element in supervision are the ethics surrounding it. The ethics are really crucial, and if that goes wrong, the whole supervision might go wrong, actually. So please bear in mind the following points. The first one is straightforward: confidentiality. What is said between the supervisor and the supervisee stays confidential. This is not only important for the supervisee and the supervisor, but also, of course, for the people that the counselor that you are supervising is trying to help. In many ways, the counselor will share kind of confidential information about the child or adolescent or the family that they're trying to help. You cannot breach that confidentiality. That confidentiality is vital. You might lose all your career, your reputation, and everything if you break confidentiality. Don't do it. There are also limits to confidentiality, of course. Safety of children, acute danger of children, high suicide risks, high risks of harming others as well. But you need to work together with the counselor on how to manage this confidentiality. There are often dilemmas. But remember, safety is always a first concern. Another thing is boundaries and dual relations. Now, boundaries, that might be clear as well. As a supervisor, you have your boundaries. You are not a therapist, we said that before. The supervisee can bring in emotions from what happened with him or her during counseling sessions. But this is not a place to bring in all the emotions of a divorce that they're going to or other type of thing. It can be compounding as well, it can be mentioned, but this is not a place to work on those emotions. You also have to bear in mind the presence and preferably the absence of dual relationships. What do we mean with dual relationships? Well, that you have more than one type of relation with the person that you're supervising. For example, you're the line manager, or you are also the therapist, or you are family or something. And it's not that it's totally forbidden to have dual relationships. We try to avoid it, but sometimes it's impossible. Now, if it's impossible, you have to clarify it before the supervision sessions start. What are the implications? How will it interfere with our relation? How will it not interfere? You check the feasibility, of course, if it's still possible to do supporter supervision or not. So as long as you clarify that, you can still go ahead. Because, I know from personal experience that it's really hard to find a good supervisor, right? And sometimes dual relationships are just there. and it will be supervision with dual relations or no supervision at all. In that case, try to make it happen, but discuss the implications of it with the supervisee, or if you're searching for a supervisor, with your supervisor, right? The third point, informed consent. Yes, so that's of course clear. Both the supervisor and the supervisee, they agree on sharing information. They also promise to keep it confidential. They both know the limits of confidentiality, so that's straightforward. And then there is a thing of cultural competence. Now, I think especially in the Pacific, I have seen that this cultural competence aspect is very important. Now, what do we mean with cultural competence? Now, that basically means that the supervisor has to understand and has to somehow link with the cultural framework, with the culture in which the counselor is working, all right? In the same way that the counselor has to be able to understand the culture of young people. Now, we said for a counselor to be a good counselor, you have to understand the world of young people. I told you, you have to, if you don't know TikTok, if you don't know the modern songs, if you don't know certain series on Netflix, if you don't know Instagram, then how can you do it? So you, as a counselor, you know that you have to get a bit more into the world of children and adolescents, right? That's something we discussed in training. Now, as a supervisor, you also have to be linked a bit with the, no, not a bit. You also have to be linked, really. You have to understand the cultural framework in which your counselor is operating. If you're talking with a pastoral counselor, and you do not know anything of pastoral work, it will be hard, right? You can discuss limits of what you can do as well. In the same way, if you are working with a counselor who is very much into the topic of LGBTQ+, so who's working with youth who has difficulties in their sexual orientation and so, and maybe because of your beliefs, you firmly judge that, well, then you don't have a relation that can be supportive for supporter supervision. It has to be clear that in many ways you have to be on the same wavelength as well. That being said, you know, there is youth that has difficulties with sexual orientation, and that can lead to serious depressions in youth. So if we want to help people in general, try to be as open as possible as a counselor and as a supervisor as well. Okay, so here is some general guidance on how to do supervision. And first of all, build trust and rapport. This is really a key element, right? The supervisee has to feel safe with you, has to feel that it's okay to show that he or she doesn't know things, that he or she has not been able to deal with certain situations, that he or she feels that she's lacking certain skills, that he or she wasn't able to connect to a child, and in no way he or she should be judged in the supervision session for any of those things. So how can you do that? You can start with an informal chat, right? You can mention that this is a safe space. You can mention that you know, you are vulnerable as well. You can mention a lot of challenges you had in the past. Something welcoming, really. This is the opposite, of course. From, okay, your supervision training goes in now. You have 45 minutes to go. That's not how it works. Really, there has to be a relaxed, kind atmosphere. And if you do it online, make sure that you have your camera on, right? Non-verbal communication is very important. You have to be able to see each other's eyes. Now, that would be ideal, of course. But of course, it can happen that due to technical limits, the camera is not possible. Then it's still better to do supervision than not doing supervision. But where possible, always work then with a camera, right? You have to balance support and challenges. So support is you really support in any way that you can, to emotionally, technically, guiding a person to do the legal aspects of the work that we do, and so on. But also challenging the person. Do not always give like instant solutions or something. Probably you know the solution to what they are dealing with, but don't provide the solution. Challenge them as well. So how would ask them like questions related to empathy. If you were now the adolescent that was sitting in front of a counselor, what would you feel? What is it exactly that you need? If you were a parent, what would you like to know now from the counselor? It is often when counselors learn to bring their own emotions, their own challenges up with the right vocabulary, if they can formulate their challenges in the right way, that a lot has already been solved, right? So try to also improve the way that they formulate their things, their issues. That's really very helpful as well. And therefore encourage reflection. For the people who were with us in the training from, okay, so you can say to the counselor who brings up a question or a case or a question, say, okay, so you worked with this child. So now put that child in the child development framework. So in which age and stage is this child? So what are the needs? What are the dangers? Then go to, okay, what do you know about the child, about his or her resilience? Encourage also the person to think about, so how safe did the child feel with you? Because this is linked to state dependence of cognition, right? The more that the child is feeling safe with you, the more that the child is able to see his or her problems the right way, right? In a constructive way. Also, so do you think there is any trauma involved? You can ask, and then which stage of feeling would the child be? And maybe you can ask for, okay, if there was loss, where is the child now? How long is how long is that ago? So encourage reflection. And you can use the 5 frameworks. You can also use other 5 frameworks. And then, of course, think about self-care. In our trainings, we talked about the different ways that we can take care of ourselves, review them if needed. And if you don't find the documents, and this is in general for this whole presentation, at the end of this presentation, I will give my email again. You just write to me. My reason of existence is being here for you. If I can support you, so say, Koen, I need some refreshing on this or that. Do you still have documents? And I will be happily sending them to you. Now, there are obviously 2 ways, 2 modes of giving supervision sessions. One is individual, one-to-one, the supervisee and the supervisor, and the other one is where there is one supervisor and you are working with a group of supervisees, right? So both of them have advantages and disadvantages. If you work one-to-one, individual level, you can give tailored feedback. You can really address the individual needs of the supervisee, and there is, of course, no problems with confidentiality. You can be sure that there will be professional development if you do it the right way. You can monitor progress easily as well, and you can actually easily also keep track of the topics that come up when you are logging your different sessions as a supervisor. The other way is that you do supervision in a group. Now, I do not recommend that you go beyond 5 people when you do it in a group. Because of course, one essential element is that you are inclusive, right? Everybody needs to benefit from it. You have limited time. Only certain issues can be brought up. Not all the issues of all the participants can come into the session. It stays interesting, of course, for the participants to learn about the issues of the other ones, and you can dive deeper in reflection. You can dive deeper into how other participants would solve the problems. So the reflection part is actually easier as well. But on the other hand, you will see that there will be problems with confidentiality as well. You're not sure of the existence about dual relations among the participants. So there are always advantages and disadvantages in both type of settings. Again, when you work online and you work in groups, make sure that you put your cameras on, because as we all know, sometimes we do this sessions in online, and sometimes it's more background music for us than really participation, and that's normal. We are humans as well, right? But remember that when you work in group, it goes with the disadvantages. That's the most important thing. But sometimes you don't have a choice because you have to work with the means and with the audience that you have, right? And just in case you have to work in group, still better than not doing any supervision at all. What are the different steps in conducting supervision? Okay, first of all, you're gonna establish a contract between you as a supervisor and your supervisee. Why is that? Because, I've seen so many times that it is often just considered as a free chat and say, yeah, we will do supervision every 2 weeks or something. But then in practice, it's always our life is very busy and it doesn't take place. So in your contract, you gonna put how many times you're gonna do supervision, how long is each session going to take, how long that the supervisee and the supervisor can cancel a certain session, how long beforehand, right? And then also how many supervision sessions you will do. It's very important that you really formalize this, because then it becomes something that is not so quickly thrown off the table, right? Now, on the question from how frequently should you do supervision, I think ideally, and I know it's always impossible, that would be once a week. Now, more realistic would be every 2 weeks or every month, right? I know it's also very difficult for supervisees to find a suitable supervisor. And maybe you as a supervisor, you feel that you're not ready for it. And I understand that. We are all growing, we're in the process, we're all vulnerable, we don't know everything, and that's okay. I think everybody of us at a certain moment in our career, we have to deal with an imposter syndrome. So a feeling that we are fake, that we're not good enough. But you are good enough if you have followed the trainings, and you can reflect on the 5 frameworks that we discussed, on the 4 methods of giving support, and so those things. So you have also experience in counseling. Built on that, really, there is a need for supervision. There is a need for joint reflection. You don't have to be technically so superior. It's more about guiding reflection. So make a contract, even if you're not such a super senior supervisor yet, put the times in there that you will do it, the frequency, the length, and also put the goals in there. The goals can be joint reflection over cases. The goals can be general professional development. The goals can be also emotional support, but don't mess up, it's not therapy and so on. Just make something concrete, a one page. If you need examples of formats of contract, contact me. My emails are at the end of this presentation, as I also said, right? Already said. The second thing is also of extreme importance, and it's often overlooked. The supervisee needs to prepare the sessions, right? And on the slide here, it's written there, case presentation. Equally, it can be a question. But if the supervisee does not come with concrete cases or concrete challenges or questions, then it becomes like a lecture. And that's not what we want, you know. We want to have a session that is really linked to the experiences, to the feelings, to the challenges of the person that you are supervising. Now, the type of challenges that the supervisee can bring up have to be very concrete. For example, I worked with this girl of 11-year-old. She was sexually abused. I don't know well what to do with her. There was no good. We don't manage to get a report. She doesn't open up. At the same time, I have difficulties because I've been maybe in the same situation. That's very concrete. A non-concrete question is, yeah, I come to the session to know more about child development, because then your answer would be a lecture, right? So very concrete cases and very concrete questions, that's what you expect from your supervisee. In case it goes wrong the first time, then it might be necessary to coach your supervisee in making the right preparation, right? Okay, so when the supervisee has presented her case or her challenge and so on, then you're gonna go into reflection and exploration. Now, reflection and exploration is not giving solutions, right? You're gonna think about how they already tried to confront the challenges. You're gonna think about if they would were the child that they're counseling, what would they expect from the counselor? You're gonna think about, has there been other similar cases that worked well or didn't work well? And then you're gonna guide them through the multiple frameworks that we used, the multiple ways that we used of creating safe environments, the grounding exercises, and the ways of giving support, right? It's really a joint exercise of thinking, and if there are aspects that the counselor did not know, then you can fill up those holes. But don't do that a priori from the beginning, right? The guidance, the concrete guidance, it comes at the end, right? That's filling up the holes, the feedback. So it can also be, but I really recommend that you go over the materials again, because I see that some technical knowledge is still missing. Or maybe you can guide them to some YouTube videos. There are very good YouTube videos as well available on how to do counseling as well. Use everything that you have. Use your own experiences as well and guide them with that. And then the final aspect is you're going to make an action plan and review. Now, an action plan is not like by next session, you're going to do this with that child or something. That's not how it works. It's more a suggestive type of thing, right? You're going, like, you might, by the next session, you have explored to try out music-based therapy, since it's an adolescent. Adolescents are very sensitive to music. And you're going to go over the session again. It's good to know that a session in general is not more than 50 minutes. It can go into 1 hour, and if it's a group session, don't make it more than 1.5 hours. Right? Okay. Please don't get scared when you see this slide. It is not my intention at all. to bomb you now with theoretical models, blah, 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 and these type of things. But I do want to talk very briefly about different models or different ways of supervision. Not because I want you to remember complicated words and models and so, but instead what I want you to think is about what is your natural style of supervision. You know, some people have a more teaching type of style. Some people have a more listening type of style. Some people help their supervisees to think and so on. So everybody has a natural style. And I just want you to become aware that there are more styles, right? And then maybe you can start thinking about sometimes including some of the other styles as well. That's all. That's why I include now a couple of different models. Now, one is, for example, a developmental model. Uh, Supervisors who use developmental model, they focus on stages of supervisory growth from novice to expert. You know, you start with a beginner and you bit by bit bring them up. It's a bit like you train them. Huh? You adapt your style over time. In the beginning, you give more explanation, and over time, you become more of a person who helps the supervisee to reflect. Um, you also emphasize, of course, the autonomy, the confidence, and professional maturity. You know that every supervisee has a potential, and you want to bring out the maximum of the potential in the supervisee. Is that you? Are you one of those? It's a beautiful model, actually. Another way that some of us do supervision is a competence-based model that's structured around professional skills. Uh, the professional skills that we used in our trainings with UNICEF are the equip competency skills set in the We Act competency list, where we have 13 competencies. And we saw in each of these harming behavior, good behavior, and advanced behavior. So you can work together on those skills with the supervisee, and you can make really benchmark for progress as well, right? You can see, okay, 3 months ago they were at level 2, now they are at level 3, and we want to be at level 4 in some months from now. This helps ensure this helps, of course, to ensure quality and accountability, and also if they need to accredit and they want to become a formal counselor, and they need to comply with the minimum standards, right? Remember that in order to comply with the minimum standards, counselors need to have, in some countries, level 2 of the We Act competency list, and in other countries, level 3 of the We Act competency list. Now, another model is more the reflective practice model. And here you really go to in reflecting, right? So what would you want to hear if you were the child that you were counseling? Did you see it before with other children? Did you use the frameworks that we talked about in the training? Did you think about that maybe the child does not want to talk about in a negative way about certain people? Did you think about maybe there were some other things that the child is not saying to you? Did you think about the aspect of entangled emotions, contradictory emotions? You know, we did exercises on how we can disentangle emotions. So you really think together with the supervisee. You become a facilitator, and you also always act in accordance with the ethics of supervising and of counseling and the values. You become a role model in many ways. You build on professional identity and reflective capacity, right? And then finally, there are counselors who know all these styles and they integrate them. And that's the most beautiful one. And you will see that the more you will do supervision, the more that you start to do integration as well, at least if you think about it. So that's why it's also important that as a supervisor, you still find somebody that you can do supervision with. So you are a supervisor and a supervisee as well. You can contact me if you need supervision. Now, let's talk about some do's and don'ts in supervision, right? Some do's. Well, of course, you have to foster openness and trust, right? Um, how do you do that as a supervisor? Well, you show that you're vulnerable as well. You show that you also have dealt with difficulties in the past. Uh, you you are calm, right? You don't use harsh words. You stress this is a safe environment. You stress that this is a that confidentiality is here. What happens and what's is set in this supervisor room and space stays in this supervisor room and space as well. And trust is something that you also gain over time. You know, you build up a reputation that you are really somebody trustworthy, that you are supportive, um, and basically that your interest in the session is their professional development and nothing else, right? Another thing is you provide feedback in a constructive way. So you don't say, no, you did not do that right. You can say, well, there's a different way that we can approach this. You always stress the positive things. You always stress the dedication. And you might provide alternative as well. Or you might guide the supervisee to a conclusion that things might be done in a different way as well, right? Also respect diversity. Huh? There are people with different religions. It can be that somebody has different ways of gaining trust with children as well. You know, it's not that you have to project your own good practice necessarily on all the counselors that you uh, work with. You can actually learn a lot also from the counselors that you are supervising as well. Mm? And then, of course, encourage independence. Don't make them dependent on your guidance. You are there to support them, but don't, for example, if they need certain tools like questionnaires or something, tell them where they can find them. Uh, but don't provide them like, okay, no, this is what you have to do, and here it is, right? You can tell them you can find it in on this website. You can download it there. There are multiple options. You can choose based on these criteria what you need and so on. But don't provide them with instant food. Huh? Provide them with guidance how they can come to the best ways to help their clients, their children, adolescents, and family. Now, here are some don'ts, which are very interesting. Don't dominate sessions, right? You are not the main talker in the session. The person who speaks most should be the person that is supervised. Again, that's why it is important that supervisees come in with preparation, right? And to prepare the session should be part of the contract as well, right? Don't dismiss concerns. Hmm? Um, Sometimes you hear concerns which might sound strange to you. Like, you know, when I'm with this person, I actually feel afraid of my personal safety. Uh, or I'm worried that something will happen to this child, and so don't dismiss it. Uh, or I'm worried that although the child doesn't say something, that he or she might engage in suicide or self-harm or something. Never dismiss any of those things, right? And remember, the safety of the child is the first thing. Mm? Um, but even the feelings of the counselor that you are coaching, it reminded me so much about my childhood. I felt terrible. Those are important elements that need to be brought up in a supervision session as well. But don't make it a therapy, right? Don't breach confidentiality. Don't do that. There are also limits to confidentiality, the safety of a child. If the counselor uh, had to breach confidentiality but didn't do it, then you're the one who has to breach confidentiality as well. right? I know that in some societies there might be ethical dilemmas that if you breach confidentiality, then the case will not be solved. So you need to think carefully about those things and always put the best interest of the child at first, right? And don't make it a therapy session. Uh, really, so emotions that are a direct consequence of working with children, those are things that the counselor can bring up, but don't make it into a continuous cycle of therapy sessions in which other elements of personal life also can be discussed and they will dominate the session. Guide them toward self-help resources or guide them towards therapy if needed as well. Of course, you can provide tips on how to take better care of yourself. In case you don't have them anymore, you can contact me. When I was giving training on how to be a good supervisor, we had a lot of interesting discussions. A good part of the discussions were around the challenges that people will be meeting in when they're doing supervision. And I just want to highlight some of them and suggest how you can deal with it. Or in some cases, I don't have the answer, right? One is resistance to feedback. So the supervisee does not take feedback very well. That can happen. Now, what is the solution? Well, you can be very careful in providing feedback. Say a couple of positive things first, and then say something maybe that you agree less with. Also say it in a way that that maybe another way of thinking about it is possible instead of disagreeing as well. But also, often you see the resistance in feedback not in the way that they express themselves, and I don't agree, but you see in the non-verbal communication. I think at that stage it is important to bring it up. You can say things, I see in your eyes that there is something you do not totally agree with, and that is perfectly okay. But why don't you agree with it? And maybe you can just discuss it. And maybe you can also address the underlying causes. Maybe there are religious reasons. Maybe there are things from their own childhood that they went through, and that taught them a lifelong lesson. And it's difficult to get rid of that sometimes as well. So talk about the underlying reasons, and be soft in the ways that you formulate things, right? Okay, another one, and that's really very complicated in the Pacific region, are ethical dilemmas. Um, and here I'm talking about the imperfections in the system. In a perfect world, you would have case managers and laws and implementation of the laws and cooperative police force as well, who know how to work with children, right? Now, often this is not the case. So let's take now an example. You have a 13-year-old girl who comes forward and talking to the counselor that she was abused from 8-year-old till 11-year-old, right? Now, the normal thing to do is, of course, bring this up with the police, go into a formal investigation, and so on. But it can be that you're in a community where the police is dysfunctional, where there is no case management, where there will be community peacemaking mechanisms, where the only thing that will happen is that the girl will be confronted with the perpetrator. The perpetrator will have to pay a fine to the family, and the girl has then to forgive the perpetrator. And that's everything that will happen. So what do you do then, actually? I don't have answers to those questions. This is not how it should be. It's very complicated. I would say think in the best interest of the child. Think about how can you help the child, think about the safety of the child as well. Think about the implications for the child if she would then bring it out to the whole family, if the family will be destroyed, if there will be other help for her available as well. Think also about the will the perpetrator continue with his actions and make more child victims. Yeah, it's a very difficult question, and I can only hope that we really grow to a society where there is support for children and where there is the rule of law. But try to always think in the best interest of the child. Another thing that you will see is that some counselors are dealing with burnout and vicarious trauma. Now, burnout and vicarious trauma are two different things. Burnout is a long-term consequence of working with children. Most of the time, it's a consequence if you cannot help children. There is a learned helplessness element of that in it. If you don't remember these terms, just go back to the presentations that we used in our trainings. If you cannot find them anymore, just contact me. Vicarious trauma is a secondary trauma, is when the counselor has to cope with a trauma that is caused by repeatedly or even just one time listening to the trauma of a client, of a child as well. It can really hurt. I'm speaking myself of experience. I had to stop a couple of times in my work because I was really suffering from vicarious trauma. And that's normal, you know. Remember, we are humans. In that case, give the appropriate guidance for vicarious trauma. Recommend that the counselor goes into therapies. The most effective therapies are here CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, and EMDR. Both of them are available online as well. And for CBT, there are also self-help books as well. And the last challenge is power dynamics. That's something that I also see very often, even within the UN, that the ones who are supposed to give the supervision are actually also the line managers or are closely linked to the line managers, so you don't feel safe. It's not an ideal relation, but it really depends here from personalities. You have some line managers who actually can appreciate that and who understand that people, even though they have a very good professional level, they are still facing challenges, and it's good to deal with challenges. The power dynamic issue can also come from the supervisee, that the supervisee just doesn't feel safe, right? So sometimes it's just better to find another external supervisor as well. And disadvantage of that is that they might not be familiar with the frameworks that we've been working with in our UNICEF trainings. But that's still okay, right? As long as you have somebody to reflect together with as a supervisee, you are really gaining from it. You are growing. Hey, my colleagues, friends, by means of conclusion, this presentation, three thoughts. One is that supervision is an ongoing process. It's not a one-off supervision session. It's something that you put in contract that you maybe do for half a year. It's a continuous professional development process for the counselor that you are supervising, and actually also for yourself. The more that you do it, the better you become in it, right? As long as you use reflective practices, both for the counselor and also for yourself. Supervision also safeguards clients and strengthens practitioners. Clients are, of course, the children and the adolescents that the counselors work for. So it's better for all the children of society in general and it also strengthens the capacities and the skills of the counselor practitioner that you're working with. So in a way, for you as a supervisor, you will get a good amount of job satisfaction in providing your services. And supervision builds a culture of reflection and care, which is very different from a top-down culture in which you get judged. It's just so nice and to work in a culture where there is openness, where there is safety, and where you can think together about what is now the best way forward. And now, as promised, here are my email addresses where you can reach me if you need extra materials or if you need supervision yourself. It's good to use both emails in this 21st century. It often happens that one of the emails bounces back, but use both emails. Thank you so much for listening to this presentation. I wish you the best of luck as a supervisor, and I wish you a lot of professional growth and job satisfaction.